Owning a Porsche has been a dream of mine since I was a little kid growing up in a small village in Poland, and now as an adult I feel very humbled to be able to have not one but two Porsches in my possession. On my left is my 2015 Cayman S. On my right is my 2019 911 Carrera T. And today I'm going to highlight some of the similarities and differences between these two vehicles because you'll be amazed how similar they really are. A lot of people call the Cayman the baby 911, thinking that it's a lot smaller than the new and bloaty 911 of this 991 generation, but you'll be amazed. And check this out. I have this measuring tape. We're going to measure the wheelbases. So the wheelbase of a 981 Cayman S is 97 inches, and now the wheelbase of a 911 is, you guessed it, 97 inches. I might be off by an inch or two, but you get the idea. Of course, the Cayman has an engine in the middle, which means it's got a perfect 50-50 weight distribution, but no back seats. Whereas the 911 has an engine in the back, which means it's very rear heavy, but it's got rear seats. And whereas the wheelbases are the same, the 911 is slightly wider. But take a look at the front, how similar the fronts are. I mean, the shape of the hood is almost identical on the Cayman and the 911. Even the shape of these fenders and where the headlights start is very, very similar. Obviously, the Cayman has different shape headlamps compared to the 911, but overall, it's a very, very similar front. And when we pop the trunk, we can see more similarities. So this is the front trunk of a 911, and again, pay close attention to the plastic behind, how deep it is. And now take a look at the Cayman, and again, pay close attention to the plastic and the deepness or the depth of this trunk. It is absolutely identical. And my suspicions were correct. This hood has the 991 part number, which means this is a 911 hood, or you could say that your 911 has a Cayman hood. And aside from the shape of the door handles and a little crease here in the door's panels on the outside as well as on the inside are identical. And check this out. When I open this up, see, small finger gap here. I hope my calculations are right because we're going to do this one fast. Oh, we made it. Okay. Yeah, the doors are identical. And to prove my point about the door panels, these door panels I upgraded, and guess what? They came from a 991 GT3. So the part number for this interior door panel is the same as in the 911. And check this out. So remember what this looks like. Now, you see what this looks like? Obviously different leather, different stitching, but the shape is exactly the same. The back of the car is really where the difference lies, starting with the Cayman, for example, where you have this quite sizable rear trunk. Check this out. I fit in here. There's a little shelf up here. It's very, very spacious, whereas on the 911, you don't have anything. The only thing that you have is this little access panel to all the fluids and whatnot. And of course, the actual back is completely different. Different taillights, different shape of the bumper, different spoiler, different back windows, even different exhaust setups. This particular car has a sport exhaust setup, which brings the tips closer. The regular setup has the tips on the outside, whereas in the Cayman, no matter which model you get these center mounted tips, which makes it look like a mini GT3. And oh man, does it sound like a GT3. Check this out. And now this one, the sound comparison isn't exactly fair because the 981 has a flat 6 naturally aspirated engine, 3.4 liters, and it is known to be one of the best, if not the best sounding Porsches of all time. I have a Soul aftermarket exhaust fitted on this car, and it really, really made this exhaust sound absolutely perfect. This is the most perfect sounding car I have ever owned. Whereas this one, even though it has a sport exhaust from the factory, because of the fact that it's a flat 6 3-liter twin turbocharged engine. The twin turbochargers really muffle the sound, and yes, you hear the turbo spool, you hear that whistling, but it doesn't have that sort of naturally aspirated raw sound that the Cayman has. I'm going to be doing some exhaust work to this car fairly soon, just to make it as nice as possible. Oh, that's my buddy with a Targa 4S, so we're going to do a video on that one. But anyways, I'm going to be doing some exhaust work on this car. Hopefully we can make it sound 75% of what the Cayman sounds like. And now on the inside of this 911, again, everything is leather appointed. It comes from the factory like this. You've got extended leather here. It's a very luxurious and sporty place to be in. We've got these optional 18-way seats. And the best thing about this car is that it's got back seats that I use to hold my kids. I've got my baby seat here, I've got my booster over there, and my kids love riding in this car. If you are not using it as a child holder, you can actually fold the seats and have a shelf in there for additional storage. There's also a shelf right behind the seats, so on the interior there's plenty of storage. Whereas in the Cayman, it feels much more like a cockpit. You've got a different dash layout, more rounded and whatnot, but the seats are these upgraded GT3 seats that fit perfectly in a 981. These are called the four-way adjustable seats because they're manual seats. They're the same shape as the 991, except the bolsters here do not adjust electronically. Everything's manual. And then if we look in the back, you notice that there is no storage. There's no back seats. Well, the only storage you have is this top shelf here, but I can't imagine ever storing anything on the top shelf because it would completely obstruct the rear view. Other than that, this once again feels much more like a go-kart because you're cocooned by these four walls. You've got the door on that side, you've got the wall behind you, you've got the dash and another door on this side. But the beauty of this car is you've got the engine right behind you and you hear absolutely everything that's happening. And I do mean everything. Starting with the way this manual shifter feels. When you put it in gear, you can hear it not only click here, but you can hear it click behind you. When you're outside, you hear the linkage click. It is the most amazing shifting feel you can get in a car. And once you get going and you put your exhaust in sport, if you do have an aftermarket muffler or even a sport exhaust, you get these burbles. Acceleration is not mind-blowing, but it's very linear, so it doesn't kick you in the seat, but it continues to shove you as you progress through the gears. But the best thing about this car is the symphony behind you, because it's not the fastest. It's actually a lot slower than many family sedans out there. But I have to scream so you can hear me because that engine and that exhaust is behind me. And it just sounds so amazing. And what's also amazing is how well it handles. Look, there's a turn coming up. The car stays flat when you're turning. There's no understeer, there's no oversteer. The car feels extremely neutral and it feels like it's part of you. It feels sort of a very purpose-built vehicle. Everyone talks about the analog feel. This car is the definition of analog feel because there are very few electronics here. All the electronics that you have are in the dash in front of you that show you your engine's parameters. Everything else is super manual. And again, it handles so well, even though I'm driving on winter tires. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I am selling this car. Well, maybe it's not a secret if you watch the channel. I'm selling it because I don't drive it enough now that I have the 911. But I have a feeling I'm gonna regret selling it. But if I do regret selling it, I might pick up a GT4 for track duty. So that'll be a nice replacement. now with the 911, a bit more quiet, but you have this knob over here where you can put in different modes. If you put it in Sport or even Sport Plus actually spools up the turbos so they're ready to go, but it's still a bit of a quiet place to be in. Obviously you can adjust the exhaust and all that stuff here, but compared to the Cayman, it's a lot more quiet. Also compared to the Cayman, the shifter doesn't feel as clicky and notchy, and you don't feel it so close behind you. You feel it over there, you actually hear the engine all the way in the back, but you feel like you've got this real estate behind you, because you do. You've got the seats, you've got the shelf, so you're very much isolated from the engine noise. Now, the Carrera T has an actual tube that channels exhaust and engine sounds into the cabin, but it's still not loud enough, so we're going to take care of that. But don't get me wrong, quieter doesn't mean slower. This car is a lot faster than the Cayman. It handles almost as great as the Cayman. You don't have that symphony behind you, or it's not as loud, but the shifting is also pretty good. Listen, I'm splitting hairs over here. The shifting on this car is absolutely fantastic. It's not as good as in the Cayman, but it's much better than any other car out there. And just hear it. And it handles great. Yeah, you do feel like you're hauling a lot more weight in the back, and you have that sort of pendulum effect thing where it pulls you and then it corrects you, pulls your back and it corrects you when you're taking these sharp turns. But having said all of that, this is obviously a much superior vehicle. Fit and finish is a lot better, and the most important thing is you feel a lot cooler driving a 911. Nothing against the Cayman. I love driving my Cayman, but this is just a completely different experience. And I don't know if it's the color or whatnot, but this car gets a lot more attention compared to the Cayman. Cayman sort of blends in, and it could be anything. It could be an MR2, could be a Fiero, could be anything. This one you can never mistake for a 911, and people love it. And driving this car is always an adventure. Oh. Gotta love it. Gotta love this thing. And we're done. I hope this was somewhat helpful if you're trying to decide between a Cayman or a 911, or maybe if you want to get both. Keep in mind that the price of a 911 is more than double of what a Cayman costs, and it doesn't mean that the Cayman is half the car of a 911. As you saw from that short clip, the Cayman is a very, very capable car. It puts a huge smile on your face, but one of the big reasons why I picked up a 911 is because every time I drove the Cayman, I had a 911 envy when I saw one. So I sold it to the wife that it's got back seats, so I had to have a 911. Now I have both. I will not keep both because it doesn't make sense for me to keep two sports cars. So that one's gonna go. This one is gonna stay for a couple of years, and I hope you stick around for a couple of years. If you enjoyed this clip, consider giving me thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.